All right, fire it away.
Okay. So we got. What's up, guys?
What's up, guys?
Oh, everyone. We changed what's up, everyone.
What's up, guys?
It's your host, Thomas Kopelman.
It's your host. You know you made it when you're TK. Thomas Kopelman.
I was going to say, also known as TK. I thought about it.
No, we're not doing that.
This is the Long Game Podcast.
This is the Long Game Podcast.
A
Alright.
podcast
Shedding
light on people's unique stories and journeys.
on people's unique stories and journeys
They've taken to finding their purpose.
they've taken to find their purpose. That's our word. Okay?
You will leave each episode. Bold statement.
You got any bold? Each episode
Inspired
inspired
to find your purpose
to find your purpose
and chase your dreams.
and chase your dreams.
While understanding
Okay?
what it takes to do just that.
Understanding what it takes to do just that. That it?
Mm-hmm.
And then disclaimer, which I will do. Okay. All right. Get this light turned back on. Doing it myself. All right. So then we're gonna. What's up, guys? It's your host Thomas Kopelman, and this is the Long Game Podcast, a podcast shedding light on people's unique stories and journeys. Unique stories and unique journeys. Dave, can't read my writing. Taken to find their purpose. You'll leave each episode inspired to find your purpose and chase your dreams while understanding what it takes to do just that. And then into disclaimers. So let's first change this to everyone rather than guys. We don't want this to be too bro-y. What's up, everyone? It's your host, TK, and this is the Long Game Podcast. I think that's good. A podcast shedding light on people's unique stories and journeys they've taken to find their purpose. I think we can take out they've taken, because obviously if it's their journeys and stories, like they've taken it, that's obvious. So take they've taken to find their purpose. A podcast shedding light on people's unique stories and journeys. Could be just to find their purpose. You'll leave each episode inspired to find your purpose. I don't want to get rid of that. It's too redundant. Find your purpose and chase your dreams while understanding what it takes to do just that. Podcast shedding light on people's unique stories and journeys to find their purpose. You'll leave each episode inspired. So when you think about the conversations you're going to have, like what...
Sorry, I was just trying to record this, but...
What are those conversations going to be centered around? Like the person's story? What else?
Person's story, what they learned from it, you know, how they prepared so they could actually take this leap.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to all kind of tie back to, like, you know, I think, like, centering themselves on, like, they're doing the thing that they love,
Mm-hmm.
which allows them to live their purpose. So then what they learn from it, what recommendations they give to other people thinking about doing this,
Okay.
stuff like that.
And then ultimately the loose end connection is we help people build plans for their purpose, so that it comes back to us. But it won't be like it'll be branded as an RLS Wealth podcast, but we're not going to make it super heavy. The podcast episodes aren't going to be like let us help you do that. It's more about bringing the story. Okay. With the long game being listeners become clients, or maybe even some of our guests become clients, because naturally the conversation is going to play out. You know, what it is that you do, why we're helping people find their purpose, and the people that we want to help. All right, so podcast shedding light on people's unique stories journeys. A podcast. How about we do highlighting? A podcast highlighting
unique stories and journeys
highlighting
to finding their purpose. You'll leave each episode inspired to.
I want to figure out how we can maybe drop people's. A podcast highlighting stories and journeys of people finding their purpose, but I only use people. Podcast highlighting journeys. What do you think? Podcast highlighting journeys. I don't want to say of successful people because that's relative.
Mm-hmm.
Highlighting the journeys, the stories of highly motivated individuals pursuing their passions.
Mm-hmm.
Pursuing their passions on their journey to finding purpose. So that's good. So, what's up, everyone? It's your host TK, and this is the Long Game Podcast, a podcast highlighting the stories of highly motivated individuals pursuing their passions on their journey to finding purpose. In each episode, you'll hear. What will they hear in each episode? In each episode, you'll hear. What if we say a podcast about following passions on the journey to ultimately finding your purpose. In each episode, you'll hear from highly motivated individuals, their stories, and how they turned their passions into their purpose. Inspiring you to follow their lead.
Highlighting stories of highly successful. Is that what you put?
Yeah, we'll rewrite it. Following their lead. Okay. So I gotta make sure of this chicken scratch. What's up, everyone? It's your host TK, and this is the Long Game Podcast, a podcast highlighting I changed that. It's not the stories. A podcast about
Highly successful people.
turning passions into purpose. So you gotta remember, almost every episode has to deal with someone following their passion to ultimately building the life and the purpose they want to live. So we may end up not funneling the long game audio through this because that won't apply. Is that okay with you? If there's long game audio that makes sense, we can, but financial anxiety doesn't really have much to do about, I guess it could. I guess what you could do is you could do a 10-minute intro about financial anxiety and how that can prevent you from finding your purpose and following this because you're afraid, and that you recently did a blog post and a video that you and I discussed it. Here's the audio from that discussion. So we could still work those in sometimes. But before we finalize that, Is it okay to say this is a podcast about following or turning passions into purpose? I like that because that speaks to RLS and what we're doing, and then I'm going to be having money and purpose, which will be a totally different podcast.
So where would we put those clips then?
I mean, they'll be on YouTube, they'll be on the blog. I mean, I think we can. I mean, I'll feed them through All About Your Benjamins because it'll fit there. Like it can fit there.
Okay, that's fine.
And then, but I think that some of them will apply. Like we can think about Josh Brown's podcast. I don't know if you've listened to it, but he does it every Friday, and like the first 20 minutes is him just talking about things going on, and then it leads into the audio of videos that they did for the week on the compound. So not everyone's going to go through like lifestyle creep. Maybe we can tie that in, maybe we can't. But I think financial anxiety we can. Like, so for 10 minutes you talk about how not keeping track of financial anxiety, not keeping your anxiety around finances could prevent you from reaching your ultimate goals and finding your purpose. However that might be. Like whatever you think, for 10 minutes you talk by yourself. And then you can end it with, I recently wrote a blog post over on the long game, and Justin and I talked about it on Breaking Down the Long Game. Here's the audio from that conversation. And then that's your podcast. So you've got 10 to 15 minutes of you talking, and then we've got, I think our video was 12 minutes. 12 minutes of our audio that we can strip into it. So It can still land there. And then when you look at the feed of the Long Game podcast, like episode 1 is going to be the intro. Episode 2 would be, Justin Castelli, whatever you title it. And then we could feed Breaking Down the Long Game, but financial anxiety. And then when someone looks at your feed, they see, oh, that's an interview with me. Oh, that's audio from Thomas's videos from his blog. Like, I know that there's a case to be made that you just, all your podcasts is interviews or all your podcasts is one type of show. But I really like Gary Vee, how it's the audio experience. And if that wasn't such an obviously strong name, like that's what I would use, is I would rather our podcast be a collection of what we're talking about. Because some people may not watch YouTube, they may not read your blog post, but they're going to listen to the long game, and then they still get to hear this message that we want that feeds into the overarching theme. So I think that long game videos, breaking down the long game, a video, if it can tie into money and purpose, or if it can tie into turning passions into purpose, or preventing it, or helping it, then it can find its way there. But not every breaking down the long game will show up here, and we'll talk through which ones go in and which ones don't. But how do you feel about it? Because ultimately this is yours, but I like just a real short podcast about this and that.
Yeah, I like
and then we can go into, in each episode, you'll hear from highly motivated individuals, their stories of chasing their passions and how they ultimately found their purpose, leaving you inspired to follow their lead. Like just super short and sweet. We don't need to be super long.
Okay.
All right, so let me wipe out what we're not going to use. We're going to keep the podcast about time. So we're keeping this. No. In each episode, and I think that I like the highly motivated individuals because that would be one way to describe who we want to work with. And if you're a highly motivated individual, like that's going to resonate with you. Oh, this is me. So if you're not highly motivated, then maybe it won't inspire you. You're like, oh, I hate people that are that way. They're so annoying. I don't want to hear from them. And then, okay, then you're probably not somebody that we would work with because there's plenty of advisors that will help somebody who's not highly motivated. We want those highly motivated people. We want those entrepreneurs. So in each episode, you'll hear from
highly motivated people.
Highly motivated, I say individuals.
Okay.
I don't know why I like that better. Individuals. You hear from highly individuals, and there's you'll hear in each episode you hear highly motivated individuals share their stories of pursuing their passions, taking control of their destiny and ultimately living their purpose. In each episode in each episode you'll hear highly motivated individuals share their stories of pursuing their passions, taking control of their destiny, and ultimately living their purpose, leaving you inspired to follow their lead. Disclaimer. How do you like that?
Good.
All right. So one more time through, I'll let you listen to me say it, type it out.
It's typed out.
All right. Make sure it's all the same, and then I want you to say it.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure that the words flow for you. It sounds good. You feel confident saying it, because I don't want you doing your intro and people be like, he doesn't believe this stuff. Like, he's just saying it. Like, I want it to come across like, this is like, Thomas is excited to have these conversations. He believes this stuff, and I'm excited for it. So, what's up, everyone? It's your host, TK, and this is the Long Game Podcast, a podcast about turning passions into purpose. In each episode, you'll hear highly motivated individuals share their stories of pursuing their passions, taking control of their lives, and ultimately living a life of purpose, inspiring you to follow their lead. And then into the disclaimers.
Okay, so it's a little different. So, what's up, everyone? It's your host, Thomas Kopelman, and this is the Long Game Podcast, a podcast about turning passions into purpose. In each episode, you'll hear highly motivated individuals share their stories of pursuing their passions, taking control of their destiny, and ultimately living their purpose, leaving you inspired to follow their lead.
How's it feel?
Good.
All
Do
right.
you think it would be bad if I said, and ultimately living their purpose, leaving you inspired to do just that?
I mean, semantics, it's saying the same thing. For whatever reason, I like follow their lead because I feel like they're helping you on a journey and you're following what they've done. They've kind of blazed a trail a little bit. I just think it speaks more to like a story being told and them leading.
Okay.
So I kind of like follow their lead better.
That's fair.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
All right. You got it. Now you got to record it.
Sounds good.